Well, that's a wrap on the 2022 Colorado football season. Ugly first half. Colorado showed fight in the second half, but I would imagine most CU fans had probably tuned out by that point. There's a lot of relief. I would imagine you felt this too when that clock hit zeros and the season was over. And then you go to the post-game press conference and Sanford got a little emotional and just an incredible job that he did, although the results on the field didn't necessarily, show it.
Yeah, it was kind of an interesting press conference because, like you said, I think all of us are kind of feeling this relief, like, oh, geez, it's finally over, right? And in my mind, I'm thinking they've got to be thinking that same thing. Yet they're all talking about how much fun they had together and how they had a fun time in the second half, with guys, Frank Phillips scoring his touchdown and all those things. And, I even asked Mike Sanford, I said, is there some relief? Even though, you're talking about having fun, is there some relief that it's over? And he said, no, not at all. And I don't think anybody in the locker room felt that. Now, I imagine there's some players that are ready to move on and not play another football game this season, heal up and just kind of move on. But it's amazing how this team, through 1-11, and as disastrous as this is, I mean, you were looking it up. I mean, there's some bad records they set this season, and as bad as it's been, these guys seem to have fun playing football. It's kind of odd. It's sort of it was a weird feeling in the press conference.
Yeah, it just was a murderer's row here at the end of the season. I don't know, had you brought Nick Saban here during, after Durrell was fired during the bye week, if you're getting many wins out of this group, right? It was a personnel issue, and towards the end of the season, it was an opponent issue as well. And injuries were mounting up at quarterback. JT Shrout unable to go today. Maddox Kopp goes in there, and Sanford mentioned that he was sixth on the depth charts earlier this season.
Yeah.
They don't have 6 scholarship quarterbacks on the roster. So that means if you take what Sanford said there to be the truth, and he's never been a guy that's really lied to us, that's where they were at the quarterback position at the end. When Shrout was struggling, we mentioned on many of these videos that I get you want to see another quarterback, but that quarterback is not here unless you burn Owen McCown's red shirt, and they didn't want to do that. They shouldn't have done that. They didn't do that. That's good. But what we were left with was really bad quarterback play down the stretch.
Yeah, it wasn't good. And, credit to Maddox Kopp, in his first collegiate game ever, like Mike Sanford said, hey, here's your first game ever. You got to go against the number 14 team in the country. Good luck to you. They're also the best defense in the Pac-12. It was the numbers, especially first half, were not pretty. I mean, the whole first half was ugly. The final numbers, the kid fought through it. Throws his first touchdown pass there at the end. I don't think it was a horrible day for Maddox Kopp. I mean, he did have one that should have been a pick six early on, but the quarterbacking play in general, as to your point, has not been good for a couple of years now. I mean, you go back to Sam Neuer early in 2020. He played very well. Tough couple games to finish that season. But since Neuer's start in 2020, the first few games, it's been rough. And we talk about the coaching search, all that stuff. They obviously need a good coach here. But until they figure out that quarterback thing, get a good quarterback in here, they're not going to win more football games than what they're doing right now.
Yeah, no question. At halftime, Utah had 24 more points than Colorado's offense had yards. That's how ugly it was in the first half.
Yeah.
Second half, Alex Fontenot scores his final touchdown as a Buff. Anthony Hankerson scores his third touchdown. He's a freshman. Looks like he's got a bright future. And then to cap things off, Frank Phillip. And it's funny because before that play, we all knew what Mike Sanford said on Tuesday, that he kind of hinted, and I nudged an intern, Jimmy, and I was like, this is going to 94. And Utah, apparently at that point, I don't know how into the game they were at that point. No one was covering Frank Phillip. Great moment. A nice way to end the season for those offensive linemen. But again, I don't know how many Colorado fans were still watching.
Yeah, I actually said to somebody riding up the elevator to the press conference, I'm like, how is it that Utah, I'm sure they read press clippings this week, how is it that they heard all that stuff and didn't think they're going to throw it to 94 at some point and not have him covered? And then the point was made to me, like, maybe they didn't care and they were like, whatever, just have your moment. And there's probably maybe some of that, I don't know, but I don't care how it happened. It was a cool moment for the Buffs, and at the end of what's been a very difficult season, kudos to them for having a moment like that. Frank Phillips been a really good guy for us to talk to over the years, and really good young man. And so you like to see him have that moment. I know it meant a lot to Tommy Brown, and a lot of these guys seeing that. So really cool moment at the end, even in a 63-21 game.
Yeah. Defensively, Nico Reed's interception return was the highlight there, but it was tough sledding for that group. And with their performance today, they break some of the records of futility or of bad things happening defensively that 2012 team had. They gave up more touchdowns than any defense in program history, more yards and yards per game. Tough spot that Gerald Chapman was put in. It just, as bad as the quarterback play was to watch at times, the defense was right there with it.
Yeah, and it is a tough spot. I think it's tough to change your scheme and come in as a coordinator midway through the season. I would have liked to have seen Gerald Chapman with an entire offseason to see what he could do with the group. He didn't have it, and they did make some more impactful plays down the stretch the second half of the season, but they just couldn't stop anybody. I mean, 63 points today. They gave up 54 to Washington last week, 55 to USC the week before that, 49 to Oregon. It was a brutal November, the slate, but then the amount of points. I mean, they're giving up touchdowns almost every drive, and I think Utah, Nico's interception was one of only 3 incompletions they threw all game long. So I mean, Cam Rising didn't even play the second half, and they win this thing going away. So pretty easy game for Utah. We kind of thought, well, I mean, you and I both thought CU would come out and fight better, but I think most people thought this would be an easy one for Utah, and it was.
Yeah, I wish I could take my score prediction back. I gave Colorado's defense a little bit more credit, just thinking that not that they would have the performance like they did against Cal, but that they would, because even some of these bad CU teams have still kind of hung in there a little bit with Utah, but obviously that wasn't the case tonight. And this is just the second time that a CU football program has lost 11 games in one season. So. Yeah, I have all the respect in the world for Mike Sanford, and really I think this staff, top to bottom, from a day-to-day interactions and interview standpoint as the media, I think it's the best that I've had here at CU. Yeah. It's unfortunate that the results just didn't follow that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's one of the best groups of players interview-wise as well. There's a lot of really good interviews. Dave Platty, as he does every year, asked us for best interview. I don't know who you voted for, but I mean there was a number of guys we could have voted for because there were so many of them that I thought in a season like this there was many guys that were able to step up in tough moments, and they were willing to sit there and talk to us, and that's not easy. And so there's a lot of good people on this program, and maybe that's one of the reasons why they're 1-11 is maybe you need some more jerks in this program or something. I don't know. I'm making a joke, but let's give credit where they deserve it here. There's a lot of good people in this program. You feel bad for them in a season like this, and hope the best for them as the Buffs announce from the page.
Casey Roddick got my vote for best interview. He probably won't win.
But got mine as well.
He did. Okay. Well, he's got a chance, folks. I love the way he represented CU out at Media Day. And after the Air Force game, I'm sure there was no one in that locker room that wanted to come to the media. That was a miserable day down at the academy. He went in there and he got me kind of fired up with some of the stuff he was saying. And then after the Arizona game, when we kind of figured that was the end for Carl Durrell, he came in there and answered questions. And so, he was a great representative of this program. I thought about Brady Russell for a second, and he is the Buffalo Heart Award winner for this year, and well-deserved. The poor guy comes in after the 2016 season, and he mentioned that, I don't know, being here as long as I have, there's been another group that's, faced as much adversity as my group did, and I can't imagine there has been.
Yeah, I can't imagine either. And he's very deserving of that Buffalo Heart Award. A guy that fought through some injuries. Every time he caught the ball, it seemed like he was getting just smashed. It was like he was getting hit the second he caught the ball. And he went through a lot physically, I think, but was a great leader for this team. And I thought about him as well. He was probably my number 2 choice for that award. But again, there was several others that could have won that Best Interview Award. Buffalo Heart Award. I think there's a few guys that could have won that as well. But Brady, very deserving.
All right, now fans have already turned their attention to the coaching search, and we've been covering that along with this as well. I'm anxious for that to get over with as well, so we can kind of move towards the future here in Boulder. What about you?
I'm ready for that to be over. I would like to move on from that, and it's still going to be a long couple of months for you and I covering this team, because even when they come up with the head coach, they're still filling out that staff. You do this more than I do, but the recruiting coming up over the next month, signing day coming up, and it's around the corner before we know it. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. The transfer portal we got to watch. There's a lot of things to watch with this program. It's going to be very interesting next month or so.
Yep, so stay tuned to buffzone.com and buffstampede.com, because the season's over, but we've got a lot to cover here in the coming weeks.